Yo, what's good, everyone? Welcome to the Fantasy Football Prodigy Podcast. My name is Tyler Anderson, and I am your host. This is episode 44 of the podcast, and we are going to be recapping that Thursday night game between the Packers and the Commanders. We're going to be previewing the rest of the Week 2 games on the slate, and then, of course, the best part of the video, or the podcast, we are going to be getting into my starts of the week. And I mentioned the video. If you do want to see my ugly mug speaking about ball, I'm a ball knower, okay? Head over to the YouTube, Fantasy Football Prodigy, okay? If you want to see me talking. Otherwise, wherever you're enjoying the pod, I appreciate you, whether you're audio only or wherever. As long as you're listening, you are going to become a Fantasy Football Prodigy here. That's our goal today. And please make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you are listening. So we're going to start the pod by getting a quick recap of that Thursday night game. So the Green Bay Packers hosted the Washington Commanders. Packers got the win 27-18. The Packers really dominated. The Commanders were somehow like in the game until kind of the end there, but it just was a game that it felt like the Packers were dominating, which is hard to say as a Vikings fan, but the Packers look really good 2 weeks into the season here. Jordan Love, 19 of 31, 292 yards and a couple touchdowns. You'll take that. Josh Jacobs, 23 for 84 and a touchdown on the ground. Did he add anything to the air? It looks like no. And then Tucker Kraft was kind of the story of the game at tight end for the Packers. He was 6 for 124 and a touchdown through the air. Just an absolute beast. I've seen other people make this comparison, but he honestly looks like a young George Kittle out there. Like, I remember before Kittle broke out, like he was kind of in the same tier as Tucker Kraft, where it's like he wasn't, a superstar until he was. And it's looking like Tucker Kraft might be entering that category just because, he's on a good offense. He's arguably the number one target for his offense, and he's a freak athlete where he can make plays after the catch. So if you have Tucker Kraft on your team, congratulations. I think you have a locked in high tight end one, difference making tight end one for the rest of the season. And if you can buy him low in Dynasty, definitely do that. But nothing really of note for the receivers for the Packers other than that. I mean, Dontavian Wicks was 4 for 44. Malik Heath was 1 for 37. Romeo Doubs was 3 for 28 and a touchdown. He's always a guy you can throw out there as a spot start. Matthew Golden, no receptions. He did have a couple carries, and I do believe that he had a couple deep shots as well in that game. So I think, there will be better days ahead for Matthew Golden. And let me pull up his targets here. I thought I had them pulled up already. Matthew Golden he only had 2 targets. I know at least one of them was a deep shot where it was pretty close to connecting. So, and then really big news here too. Jaden Reed was also a goose, 0 for 0, but he did get hurt in this game. Broken collarbone. He's going to be out for 6 to 8 weeks. He actually got hurt on a touchdown that got called back. So I think it was like a 40-yard touchdown or something. And there was a holding penalty that got it called back. So if you were starting Jaden Reed, that's kind of unfortunate that, he, we didn't have that touchdown before leaving the game. But he's going to be out. So that's going to open opportunities for Matthew Golden. It's going to establish Tucker Kraft as maybe the number one target. I mean, he had 7 targets last week, turned into 6 for 124 and a touchdown. Very exciting for Tucker Kraft. And yeah, we'll see kind of how the pecking order looks in the receiver room for the Packers there with that injury. And then for the Commanders, Jaden Daniels, 24 of 42, 200 yards and 2 touchdowns through the air. Only 7 for 17 on the ground. The Packers defense looked really good. Every time Jaden Daniels was about to escape, they just swarmed him. The running game was non-existent. Austin Eckler was 8 for 17 on the ground. Also added 2 for 7 through the air. And then, unfortunately, it is believed that he tore his Achilles. If you saw the injury, I mean, I don't know what else it would be. He literally, I believe he looked back after he suffered the injury to see what was there. Because I heard that if you suffer a torn Achilles, it almost feels like someone's kicking you in that area. And it almost looked like he thought someone was hitting him there. And then he just fell to the ground, non-contact. one of the best, fantasy running backs of our era at age 30, already, on the back nine of his career, already not the player he once was. I would not be surprised if, that's the end of the career for Austin Eckler. Like, usually it takes a couple of years to come back from that. And even then you're not the same. And with his age and already not being, the great player he once was, it sucks to say, but it's probably the end of the career. Like maybe he tries to make a comeback and maybe he makes a roster, but even then, I don't know. There's good running backs that don't make rosters. Like, and at 31, 32, by the time he comes back, I just don't see it. But we'll see. But yeah, sorry, very, very sad. And then Bill Jacory Krosky Merritt, 4 for 17 on the ground. Not really what you want to see. Very disappointing. But more opportunity there with the Austin Eckler injury. Jeremy McNichols will have an opportunity. Rodriguez will have an opportunity, but they might be a team that's looking to bring in a running back. And then in the receiving game, Zach Ertz led the way, 6 for 64 and a touchdown. I know people don't like Zach Ertz because he's old and slow and boring, but he's going to be a streaming option, someone you can start, every week, and he's going to be somewhat involved. I mean, week 1, 5 targets, 3 for 26 and a touchdown, tight end 9 on the week. And then this week, 8 targets, 6 for 64 and a touchdown. People will say, oh, he doesn't have a lot of upside, but it's like, if you're scoring touchdowns and getting targeted and getting catches, like, okay, yeah, maybe he's not going to put up 200 yards, but if you're desperate at the position, he's someone you can pick up and play. And then Terry McLaurin, 5 for 48 through the air. Deebo Samuel, 7 for 44 through the air, and then he had a stinky garbage time touchdown. Like, I didn't play him in one league, and I was playing against him in another, and I was super happy with that decision, and with him being in that matchup until literally like a few minutes left, and it's like he just caught a little pass over the middle and ran it in, and it's like, dude, that's so frustrating. But yeah, the Commanders got kind of worked in this game here, and the Packers look really good. That defense looks amazing. And yeah, I'm a Vikings fan, so I don't want to say this, but they truly look like a really, really solid team right now. And yeah, I mean, they got nothing on the Vikings, but yeah. Anyways, we're going to get into the rest of the week 2 games here, previewing the matchups that are coming up. So we're going to start with the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Cincinnati Bengals in Cincinnati. This game has a 49.5 point over under. The Bengals are 3.5 point favorites. I'm using the DK Sportsbook to get these lines, by the way. I know they're kind of different across platforms, but that's what I'm using. Joe Burrow, the Bengals start slow every year in the Joe Burrow area. They didn't look great against the Browns. It seemed like the Browns were trying to lose the game, and they still almost won. Definitely a situation where the Bengals, it looks like a good matchup on paper against, Jacksonville. Granted, they played the Panthers last week and they didn't give up a ton to them, but how much is that the Jaguars defense being good versus the Panthers offense taking a step back from what we saw at the end of last season? But it looks like a game where you want to fire up your Bengals. Wouldn't be surprised if this game is closer than expected just because of how the Bengals do start slow. And I know that's a weird narrative, but it's just true. It just is what it is. But you're starting Joe Burrow. You're starting Chase Brown. On the Bengals side here at running back, must start. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins are in your lineup, obviously. You're not starting any tight ends for the Bengals. And then on Jacksonville's side, Trevor Lawrence is someone you can start if you really don't have any other options. I would not want to. He's a kind of like a high quarterback 2 option. Like, I would think about starting like Bo Nix over him probably. He's kind of, he's close to JJ McCarthy in that range. But he's definitely someone that, might be startable if you're in a pinch. Travis Etienne, I really like this week, especially because I think this game is going to be closer than people expect. I like him as a nice running back too. Obviously, last year he was a huge bust and no one really wanted him. There were question marks in the backfield, but week 1, I know it was against the Panthers and their terrible run D, but he looked like the clear guy there. And the team just traded away Tank Bigsby. So his role is even more secure, at least in the short term here. And yeah, he is someone that you should be starting as a running back too. Brian Thomas Jr., fire him up. I know he didn't really do a lot in week 1. He got bailed out with that rushing touchdown. But, you know, we're 1 week in. He had 7 targets and only turned to 1 for 11 through the air, and then 1 for 9 and a touchdown on the ground. But you're still starting him as a must-start option. And then Travis Hunter, not a must-start, but, you know, he's a rookie. It might take time, but he is a, you know, wide receiver 3 flex type of guy that you can put in there if you don't have better, more secure options. And then Brenton Strange at tight end for the Jacksonville Jags is someone that I'm actually interested in streaming. Again, not a must start if you have like a locked in tight end 1 like Bride, Laporta, Warren. You know, play those guys. I know Kelsey's a little sketchy right now, but you're probably playing Kelsey over him. But if you need an option, Brenton Strange is someone you can throw out there. He's always had his moments. He was 4 for 59 on 4 targets last week. So again, you know, didn't have a world-breaking performance, but someone you can put out there. And yeah, we're going to move on to the New York Giants at the Dallas Cowboys. The over-under is 44.5 points. The Cowboys are 4.5-point home favorites here. Dak Prescott, it was a rough week 1. Dak was a my guy for me heading into the season, one of my favorite values in the entire draft, probably my favorite. But I even said, you know, it's going to be probably a slow start for Dak with him, you know, playing the Eagles week 1. The Giants they have a pretty good defense as well. But Dak is someone that I'm willing to start if you don't have another option there. Like if you have Justin Fields or Herbert, that looked really good in week 1. Even Kyler Murray against the Panthers there. Like, those are guys you could put in over Dak. But Dak Prescott is a nice low quarterback 1 for me. And I saw some stat, like he's won, I think I have it. I think I tweeted it out. I heard it on the Fantasy Footballers. I think he's won like, is it 13 straight games against the Giants? Is that a real stat? Yeah, I think it's 13 straight over the Giants. So, Dak Prescott, you're starting. Javonte Williams at running back is someone that you can start. He wasn't very efficient against the Eagles in week 1, but he was the clear lead back and he had the goal line work, had a couple rushing touchdowns. That's another reason why I kind of like Dak to bounce back, if not this week eventually, is because the touchdowns just happened to go to Javonte. They had that rain delay, and then the offenses came back out on the field and couldn't score. So Javonte is someone you can start as like a low running back 2 if you don't have a good option there, and just hope that you know, he gets in the end zone. He's probably not going to be the most efficient. He hasn't been efficient in years since his, you know, devastating injuries, but someone you can put out there if you are in need of someone. And then CeeDee Lamb, you're starting at wide receiver, obviously, and then George Pickens, the other wide receiver 2 there for Dallas. I'm fine putting him out there. Not a must start. I know week 1 wasn't great, but it's 1 week in the season, only 4 targets. But he's a big play guy, and you know, definitely someone you can put out there as like a wide receiver 3. He's always got upside with his athleticism. So you can put him out there, but I'm not looking to force him in the lineup. But unless you have like a really good option, like you probably drafted George Pickens in a spot where you can start him. So I would be looking to get him in the lineup if I have him, as long as I don't have like, you know, like a breakout from week 1, you know, like if it's between, you know, if he's going to be in my flex and I have to decide between like him and Etienne, because Etienne kind of broke out in week 1, then like, okay, you know, maybe I put Pickens on the bench. But for the Giants, you're not starting Russell Wilson. Tyrone Tracy is probably the guy you want there in that backfield. Their backfield is really gross with him and Cam Scatterbo. Tracy was the guy, though, 10 for 24 on the ground, 5 targets through the air, turned into 2 for 11. I would not really want to start either of them. But I know some of you are in some deep leagues, but I would go Tracy over Cam. Malik Neighbors is an auto start. It might be a little ugly as long as Russ is the quarterback there, but you start him every week. And then, yeah, Wandale and Slayton, like you can play in deep leagues. Wandale in like a full PPR league as like a deep, desperate play. But, oh, and I forgot about Jake Ferguson at tight end for the Cowboys. You can play him. He's probably a good bet to, get some shots in the end zone. He was really close to having a touchdown last week. 6 targets, only turned into 5 for 23, but he was really close on a touchdown a couple times there. So, yeah, that's probably it for that game. Yeah, I'm kind of hoping that Dak, starts to cook, because he was one of my favorite values, and I hope he looks good. So we're gonna move on to the Chicago Bears. Also I forgot to say, Deron Bland for the Cowboys is going to be out, cornerback. So that's obviously going to have an impact on the quote unquote passing game for the Giants, if you want to call it a passing game. Moving on to the next game, the Chicago Bears on the road against the Detroit Lions. 46.5 point over under. The Lions are 6.5 point home favorites. Jared Goff and Caleb Williams at quarterback. I'm not really wanting to start either one. Jared Goff on the road in Green Bay in week 1 looked terrible without Ben Johnson as their offensive coordinator. But you know what? I think a lot of people are going to look terrible against the Packers this year, except the Vikings and JJ McCarthy. They're going to look great, but you can put him out there as a streaming option. Like, I really don't want to start Jared Goff outside of like a 2 quarterback league at worst. And then Caleb Williams, he looked good to start the game last week, but then as the game went on and the plays were unscripted, he really kind of fell apart. He looked very athletic. He was impossible for the Vikings to sack, and he's kind of in a similar range as Jared Goff where you can start him, but I don't really want to. Jahmyr Gibbs is a great start for the Lions. You start him every week, and then his fellow running back buddy, Sonic and Knuckles, Gibbs and David Montgomery. You can start Monty as a running back 2, high running back 3. I know last week was ugly, but they were losing in that game. Not really a ton of goal line opportunities when you're getting smoked. He had 11 carries and 4 targets though, which is pretty solid in a game where you're getting shellacked. So he's a good bet for a touchdown and not a must start. Like in one league, I'm deciding between him and Tony Pollard. I think Pollard I kind of like a little better just because for the Titans, just because he's the only back there with Tajay Spears injured, but it's close. So it's kind of in that range. And then DeAndre Swift for the Bears at running back. That's someone you can put out there. He's probably going to be, the focal point of that running back room. We'll see if one of the backups there for the Bears kind of steps up and takes over a role at some point, but he had 17 carries and 5 targets in week 1. So with that kind of volume, you're always in play. But it's not necessarily a matchup that I love, especially if they're trailing. Granted, if they're losing, they might just throw him the ball a little bit more. Amon-Ra St. Brown at receiver is an auto start for the Lions. Jamison Williams, the other kind of number 2 receiver for the Detroit Lions, big play guy. He was a my guy. Very disappointing in week 1, but the whole offense was. I think they'll look better in week 2 here. And he's always a big play waiting to happen. Like, I'm not necessarily saying like he's a must start, but he's one of those guys where if you're going to bench him, you better have a really good option, because he can blow up at any time and put up a multi-touchdown, huge performance, deep bomb type of game. So I'm not going to bench him for someone unless I'm really confident in that play. So, when you draft a guy like Jamison Williams, you kind of have to play him most weeks to get those big boom performances, because they're not always easy to predict. So I'm not looking to bench him at all. I'm trying to get him in the lineup. And then for the Bears, man, like DJ Moore, Roma Dunze, you can play them. DJ Moore is like a wide receiver 3, maybe low 2. And Roma Dunze is also someone you can play, but Caleb Williams in the passing game did not inspire me. Like Rome is like a wide receiver 3 type of guy. And I guess you hope that it's a higher scoring game with the Bears trailing and needing to throw the ball. And DJ Moore can always have a big game. He has big playability. So obviously don't bench him for like a scrub, but I'm a little worried about this passing game for the Bears. So we'll, I'm not like saying they're must sits, but if you have like someone that broke out in week 1, like, it's not crazy to bench those guys, especially Roma Dunze. I think I have him on a bench in at least 1 or 2 leagues there. Sam Laporta at tight end, you're starting for the Lions. And then Colson Loveland, I'm not starting him yet. I'd be willing to cut him. I think it's going to take a while for him to kind of break out if that ever happens this year. There's just so many targets there. And I don't know. I personally don't see it happening. I don't doubt the talent, but I have just never been in on drafting and playing Colson Loveland just because they have DJ Moore, Roma Dunze, they drafted Luther Burden, they got Swift out of the backfield. Cole Kmet at tight end is also like an option there. So it's like, where does he fall in the pecking order? So I'm not starting Colson Loveland at all. And yeah, I think that kind of wraps up that game right there. So we're going to move on. But before we do, make sure you are subscribed or following wherever you're enjoying the pod so that you can become a fantasy football prodigy. We're going to move on to the LA Rams on the road against the Tennessee Titans. 41.5 point over under. Rams are 5.5 point road favorites. So you're not looking to start either of the quarterbacks here. Cam Ward, if he has a good game, maybe he enters the streaming conversation later, but the Rams defense looked really good against the Texans in week 1. How much was that the Texans offense versus the Rams defense? Time will tell, but not looking to start Cam Ward. Stafford, I'm usually trying to avoid playing him outside of like desperation or in maybe a 2 quarterback league, but I'm really not looking to start Stafford here. Kyren Williams, the running back for the Rams, he gets a rushing touchdown every game, and Stafford just, I don't know. You want to start Kyren Williams, you want to start Devontae Adams, you want to start Puka Nacua for the Rams, but for the quarterback, Stafford is just more often than not a good play. It's really confounding, but it works for the skill position players because the volume and the targets and the rushing work is so consolidated that Kyren at running back and Puka and Devontae Adams at receiver, it just works. But Stafford always gets left out, it seems like. So Puka must start, Devontae Adams must start for the Rams. And then for the Titans, I mentioned Tony Pollard at running back earlier. Tajay Spears is still on injured reserve. That's how IR works. He has to miss at least 4 games. And like I said, the Rams defense looked good last week. But I'm still willing to start Tony Pollard. Even in a game where they're expected to be trailing, he is going to be their pass catching running back. He's the only running back of note there. I know Chestnut got involved, but I'm not scared of him. Maybe in a fight. He's an NFL player, but yeah, he saw 89% of snaps. Tony Pollard did, not Chestnut. 18 for 60 on the ground. Only 1 target, caught it for 29 yards through the air. So you want to see more targets there, but almost 20 total touches. Not efficient, but still, you can't ignore almost 20 touches in the game. And he'll probably do that again. Calvin Ridley, wide receiver for the Titans. I'm not looking to start him. If you went really running back heavy and you took some onesie positions, maybe you have to. But he's kind of in that Roma Dunze tier. Kind of like George Pickens, maybe, where you can start them, but it's not like you have to. Calvin Ridley is like the number 1 receiver there. He saw 8 targets last week, turned into 4 for 27. I believe he also had a pretty bad drop. But you can start him. Don't bench him for like, DeAndre Hopkins or something like that. Pre-Hopkins, 3 touchdown game incoming. But you guys see that one-handed catch from Hopkins? My goodness, man. I tried to trade him in Dynasty after that, and I got laughed at. But anyways, I've had him since the beginning. And we finally got him a championship last year. Let's go. Let's get it. So I'm getting sidetracked here. But Alec Ayamaner for the Titans, the wide receiver 2, the rookie. I like him in Dynasty, and I think if Cam Ward kind of levels up, Ayamaner as the 2 there might be someone worth monitoring, but I'm not starting him this week. Not starting any tight ends for the Rams. Chiga Okonkwo for the Titans is someone I liked as a sleeper coming into the season, just because there's not really a true established target there outside of Calvin Ridley. So I thought, you know what? maybe he will be the number 2. We're only 1 week into the season, but he saw 88% of snaps, but only 4 targets and 3 for 19 through the air. As Cam Ward improves, it's possible we see Chig become like a streaming option. He ended the season pretty hot last year, if I remember correctly. Like he had some big performances there at times, and he's shown the athletic ability to be an actual difference-making tight end, but not someone I'm looking to start this week. The Rams were a pretty good matchup for tight ends last year, so again, not... It's kind of weird to say like I'm totally out on him after wanting him as a sleeper, but it's more of a wait and see. I'm totally fine rostering him, but I wouldn't start him as anything more than like a mid-low tight end 2. But I'm just interested in him because he might be the number 2 option in his offense at some point here, and he is a very athletic player. All right, let's move on here. We got some more games to get to here. So we're going to move on to the... Oh, I was going to say Kobe Parkinson is doubtful for the Rams. I'm not really looking to start either one, but I mean, Tyler Higbee and who's the tight end they drafted? The rookie? Forget his name. You know, maybe you want to take a deep shot in like DFS, but even then. Terrence Ferguson there. But Davis Allen last week, he was involved. He had a touchdown. So yeah, I'm avoiding that whole situation. I don't even know why I brought that up, to be honest. Like that's like the last tight end situation I want to deal with. Like in the entire league. But moving on here to the New England Patriots at the Miami Dolphins. Let's see. 43.5 point over under. Dolphins are 1.5 point favorites. I'm picking the Patriots to win this game here. The Dolphins just look terrible. I mean, the Dolphins offense is in trouble. Their whole team is in trouble. They called a players only meeting 1 week into the season. That's never a good sign, obviously. Tua, quarterback for the Dolphins, not starting him. Drake May, you can start. I made him a start of the week last week. I like him season long. I like his running ability, and Daniel Jones just kind of diced up the Dolphins. So I like Drake May this week. If you don't have a locked in starter, he's a low quarterback 1, honestly, with the good matchup and the running ability. Little disappointed last week against the Raiders. What did he put up? He threw it 46 times, turned into 287, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, 4 for 11 on the ground. But definitely a bounce back candidate. And, you know, if you're in DFS, maybe people are off of him. You could maybe throw him in the lineup, and, you know, he's got some upside there. Let's see. Christian Gonzalez has been ruled out, defensive back for the Patriots. So theoretically, that could make guys like, you know, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle more intriguing. And, you know, you can start those guys. And if you have Tyreek Hill, you probably are starting him, but he's nothing more than, I mean, what, like maybe at best a wide receiver 2 at this point. I saw a stat, he hasn't had a 30-yard reception in over a year, and that's kind of his thing. He's a big play guy. So I mean, you know, we're 1 week into the season, and the whole team looked dreadful. But is that going to change? He was 4 for 40 on 6 targets in week 1. You know, I'm very worried about him. He's 31 now. And he's someone that I expect to get traded at some point this season. Vibes are off. Jalen Waddle, you can put him out there. What was his stat line in week 1? 4 for 30, 5 targets. I mean, I'm not looking to start him. You know, I'd probably start like Keenan Allen, like Calvin Ridley I mentioned. I'd probably start him over Waddle. You know, if you have a guy like Keon Coleman, like, you know, you drafted him later, but he's someone that you should probably consider at least putting in over Jalen Waddle. Yeah, and then in the receiver room for the Patriots, it's a little bit ugly. I'm in a guillotine league, and I picked up Stephon Diggs. He played like, you know, I think it was like half the snaps or less, coming off that ACL injury at age 31. But he still saw 7 targets, 6 for 57. So especially in like a full PPR league, or in like a guillotine league where I picked him up for super cheap, from the Chop team, and I'm putting him in as because I have no other options. I actually put him in over Demario Douglas, his teammate, who I started last week, had negative yards, but got a touchdown, so kind of worked out. You can start Diggs in a deep league in that situation as like low wide receiver 3, I guess. Kayshon Boutte, though, is kind of the guy that long term here I am most interested in, or at least as interested in as Stephon Diggs. He looked pretty good to end the season last year. He was really good in college. I believe he had some sort of like injury situation, but last year, like in week 16, 5 for 95 and a touchdown. He had a down week, but then week 18, 7 for 117 and a touchdown. And then in week 1 of 2025, played 82% of the snaps, 8 targets, 6 for 103. So there's a world where he is the number 1 that you want on this offense over Diggs, especially, at his age and with coming off the ACL. Boutte might be a little more explosive at this point in their careers. So, not someone I'm looking to start, but he was kind of a hot waiver ad. And, if you're in a deep league, DFS, or if you have a bench spot for him, you could start him in those other situations. Or if you want to stash him on the bench, kind of see what happens. That's a good stash. Malik Washington at wide receiver for the Dolphins, not someone I'm playing, but if Tyreek Hill does get traded, someone to monitor. I just picked him up in Dynasty. Someone just recently dropped him to make room for a trade, so I scooped him up real quick. And then Hunter Henry at tight end. That's always a guy, Hunter Henry, that you can start at tight end. People are sick of him. He's very boring. He doesn't really put up huge performances unless he happens to catch a couple touchdowns, which he'll do from time to time. But week 1, 8 targets, 4 for 66. Someone you can definitely throw out there as a low tight end 1, high tight end 2 if you are desperate, or if you lost George Kittle to IR like I did. And I believe Brock Bowers is questionable. He hasn't been practicing, so we'll kind of see what goes on there. But I didn't even mention the running backs here. Almost moved on without talking about them. Devon Achane of the Dolphins, you are starting him. I know the offense is gross, but he's an auto start. Week 1, 7 for 55 on the ground. Kind of concerning. He only had 4 targets. Luckily, he caught 3 of them for 20 yards and a touchdown. He had that hamstring issue going into week 1. No injury designation for week 2. So he should be good to go. He's a must start, but you would like to see him more involved in the passing game. And then for the Patriots, you got Ramondre Stevenson and Travion Henderson there. Ramondre Stevenson is the vet. He played 65% of snaps last week, 7 for 15 on the ground, 3 targets, 2 for 12 through the air. Not looking to start him at all, And then Travion Henderson, the rookie, is the guy that we're really excited about. He only played 35% of snaps in week 1, but expect that to go up as the season goes along, as soon as this week, honestly. Only 5 for 27 on the ground, but he saw 6 targets, turned into 6 for 24 through the air, on only 35% of snaps. That's pretty crazy. I don't think you're able to buy low on him right now, just because I think people kind of expected him to start slow in the committee. But if you are able to get him on the cheap, definitely do that. So, and you can start him as a, running back 2, I would say, low running back 2. Let's move on. We got the San Francisco 49ers traveling to New Orleans to take on the Saints. 49ers, even though they're on the road, missing a bunch of players, and we'll get into that here. 3-point favorites on the road. It's a gross 40.5-point over-under. But the 49ers are very short-handed here. Brock Purdy out, turf toe. He's going to be out for a few games here. That means Mac Jones is getting the start. That's a step back for the offense, but I will say Mac Jones played decent for the Jacksonville Jags last year, and he really hyper-targeted Brian Thomas Jr. He was better with Mac Jones than he was with Trevor Lawrence. So Ricky Pearsall, he's the kind of the last man standing in that receiver room right now. So he might still be a good play even with Brock Purdy out. Let's see. Trent Williams, tackle for the 49ers, questionable, knee. Jawan Jennings, listed as questionable right now. George Kittle, stud tight end, was on his way to a huge performance in week 1. Had a good game, even though he got knocked out super early. He's on injured reserve with a hamstring, gonna miss at least 4 games. Really sucks, but they're gonna be they're going to be without him. Jacob Cowing is out, receiver for the 49ers. Ayuk is still out, obviously. Robinson for the 49ers, he's suspended. Demarcus Robinson. So, yeah, for the 49ers, it's pretty easy. You start Christian McCaffrey at running back. He was a stud in week 1. He's like the number 1 play this week, I would say. He 22 for 69 on the ground. So not very efficient, but he saw 22 carries and 10 targets, 32 total opportunities there, 9 receptions for 73 yards. Just a stud. And then Ricky Pearsall, receiver for the 49ers. You can start him. I'm in a league where I have really good receiver depth. So I could not fit him in the lineup. It's an auction league where I really should have gone heavier after some more blue chip must start type of guys. But my receivers are T. Higgins, DK Metcalf, Ted McMillan, and Cortland Sutton. I couldn't fit Debo in the lineup because of them. And Ricky Pearsall is also on my bench right now. But I really wish I could get him in the lineup. So I'm going to put Ricky Pearsall in some DFS lineups just to kind of hedge that if he does do well, I won't be completely sad that he's on my bench, But he is honestly a wide receiver 2 this week. I'd play him over Tyreek Hill, DJ Moore, Calvin Ridley, Roma Dunze, some guys we talked about there. You worry about Mac Jones, but again, he really hyper-targeted Brian Thomas Jr. last year, and it worked out. And, it's a good offense, quarterback-friendly offense. So, it might work out. Juwan Jennings, if he plays, I'm not looking to start him. He's been kind of dealing with an injury, and I did like him coming into the season, like at the very beginning of the offseason, but, he had the contract situation, injury. I think, by the midway point of the season, he might be a streaming option, but right now, looking to not start him. And then for the Saints, Spencer Rattler at quarterback. You're not starting either of these quarterbacks, Mac Jones or Rattler. But the Saints offense there were signs of life there last week. Rattler threw the ball 46 times, 214 yards, no touchdowns. But Alvin Kamara is a good start here. It's kind of a gross offense, but you can start him as a running back too. He was 11 for 45 and a touchdown on the ground last week. Only 2 targets. Caught them both for 12 yards, but you want to see that go up. But he is a good pass catching running back. You would expect more than 2 targets. But yeah, that's scary if he's not catching the passes. But he's still a fine start. Probably not a ton of upside here. But Chris Olave, you can put him out there. He is a very good player, but it's a bad offense, and he's had that concussion history where if he takes one wrong hit, he's gonna miss the game and probably the season. But he saw 13 targets, only turned into 7 for 54. That's the Spencer Rattler effect, but a guy with 13 targets, that's always someone you can put in. Kind of like him as a wide receiver 3, maybe a high wide receiver 4. And then Juwan Johnson at tight end for the Saints. Actually, an interesting play here. We'll talk about him later. Actually, no, we won't. I was going to make him a start of the week, but I didn't. I pivoted, but he was my second option for tight end start of the week. But he's a nice streaming option. He was a tight end 4 overall in week 1. And even though he, he's had these performances in the past where he's had a big blow up game, then he kind of disappears. What I like the most about his long-term potential this season is he saw 99% of snaps in week 1, and we have a new coach, new offense that might be actually looking to utilize him more. So there are behind the scenes metrics where, I don't think he's going to be a top 5 tight end rest of season or anything, but you like he was on the field, heavily involved, 11 targets. I don't know what to make of the 49ers defense with all the, the turnover from last season, but he's someone you can start if you don't have a good option. If you lost, I lost Travis Kelce, I picked up Juwan Johnson and I'm putting him in there. I think those are kind of the main pieces to talk about there. We're going to move on to the Buffalo Bills after that crazy week 1 game against the Ravens. They're traveling to New York to take on the Jets. The Bills are 6.5 point road favorites, 47.5 point over under. Josh Allen, you start him at quarterback for the Bills. Justin Fields looked really good, not only as a runner, but as a passer in week 1 against the Steelers. Where did he finish? So Josh Allen was the quarterback 1. Justin Fields was the quarterback 2. So I almost made Justin Fields the start of the week. The only reason I didn't is because we've seen him put up big performances and then fall on his face. I'm still starting him just because of his rushing ability. I'm just saying, don't expect him to have, turn things around overnight here, where he still might not be a franchise quarterback, but with his rushing ability and the chance that he does have a good game, he's taking on the Bills, who got in that huge high scoring back and forth with the Ravens, where Lamar Jackson was cooking them. Justin Fields is a mid quarterback 1 play. A good debate is him versus Justin Herbert. I think Herbert, that's really tough. I think Fields, if he's really moving on the ground, has bigger upside, but Herbert is probably a little bit safer just because he's probably not as likely to, fall flat on his face. But I love Justin Fields this week. He was almost the start of the week. Same with Breece Hall, running back for the Jets. He looked really good in week 1. I know he was very disappointing the last year or two, but he looked good. And now he's taking on the Bills, who just got gashed, bro. Like, just annihilated by Derrick Henry, who put up 28.7 points in half PPR last week. He is borderline must start. Breece Hall, 19 for 107 last week on the ground against the Steelers. Only 2 for 38 on 4 targets, but he's someone that I'm looking to actively get in the lineup. And then James Cook on the other side of the ball for the Bills. You're starting him. He's the main running back you want there. Week 1, he did pretty solid, if I remember. I was down like crazy, and I had Derrick Henry. My opponent had James Cook, and Derrick Henry got me back into it. Like, I went into the game knowing that I lost, and then all of a sudden I was back in it. And then James Cook got the rushing touchdown. He was 13 for 44 and a touchdown, 5 for 58 through the air on 5 targets. But again, like, he only played 56% of the snaps. Other running backs are involved there, but he's just really good, and he got 18 total opportunities. You'll take that. He's been dealing with a hamstring injury. It got added to the injury report earlier in the week, but they say it's minor and he's not on the injury report. So no injury designation there. So you trust that and you play him. Garrett Wilson had a great week 1 against the Steelers. You play him because he's a good player. And, the worry was, can Justin Fields support Garrett Wilson? Like, he is the clear number 1 there, but can Justin Fields still support him? Because Garrett Wilson is a historically high target receiver, and he's still kind of been disappointing. But at least 1 week into the season, Fields was kind of looking the part of being able to do that. So Garrett Wilson is honestly low wide receiver 1, high wide receiver 2. That you are obviously starting. For the Bills, it's a little more tough. Keon Coleman, he had a great week 1, the second-year player. Really wasn't excited about him coming into the season. Didn't look great as a rookie last year, but there were good reports, not only just like physically, but that he was kind of locking in, so to speak, over the offseason. And at least 1 week into the season, it showed. I mean, I know that was a crazy high-scoring game. Not every game is going to be a million to a million, but played 88% of the snaps, saw 11 targets, turned into 8 for 112 and a tipped touchdown. The guy got a little lucky there, but he was the wide receiver 4 on the week in half PPR. So I have him on my bench in 1 league, but I'm really torn on trying to start him. But all in all, he is still more of a wide receiver 3, high wide receiver 4 for me. But if you need help at the wide receiver position, that is someone you can put out there. He's got upside. And yeah, he was dealing with a groin injury, but it says he's good to go. And he's taking on the Jets. They got Sauce Gardner at cornerback, so we'll see. That's a tough matchup. We'll see how they kind of move people around to get him open. But he's got big playability, so someone you could throw out there. Khalil Shakir, wide receiver for the Bills, saw 9 targets, 6 for 64 through the air. He's always a nice, solid start, but not usually a ton of upside. So, you can start him. I'm not like looking to start him really, like maybe in a guillotine league. It's like, oh, he's safe. I'll put him out there. But there's enough high upside players where it's like I'm kind of more excited about those guys. Dalton Kincaid at tight end for the Bills. I'm not really looking to chase that performance from last week. I know he did end up finishing really well. What was his fantasy finish on the week here? He tied for the tight end 1 on the week. Granted, that was only 12.8 points, but I'm not looking to force him into the lineup. He's in that, kind of mid to even low tight end 2 category for me. He just happened to score a touchdown. That game was insane, and he only saw 4 targets. Caught all 4 of them for oh my goodness. 4. He caught all 4 of them for 48 yards and a touchdown. Listen to this. Tight end 4 targets, 4 receptions, 48 yards. But for sure, keep him on your bench. That's what I'm going to say. Only played 51% of the snaps, so I'm not chasing it. And then, I'm not starting Mason Taylor, tight end for the Jets either at this point. I mean, he's a rookie that I'm interested in monitoring. I have him in Dynasty, and he's actually questionable to even play. Ankle injury, so that's a whole nother thing. So, moving on. We got the Seattle Seahawks on the road against the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's a disgusting 40.5 point over-under. Steelers are 3-point home favorites. Aaron Rodgers, quarterback for the Steelers. I've never been one to say that he looked super washed. Obviously, not the greatest quarterback in the league anymore. But even with the Jets, he had bad games, but there were times where it's like, I thought there were times where it's like he looked okay to me. I don't like him as anything more than like a low quarterback 2. Like I'd probably start him over like Stafford, Bryce Young, Daniel Jones, Tua, maybe Flacco, but not looking to start him. And then Sam Darnold, not a great fantasy performance in week 1, going on the road against Pittsburgh. I know the Steelers defense hasn't looked great going back to the end of last season, but I still just don't want to start Darnold at this point. Jaylen Warren, running back for the Steelers. You can put him out there if you went like 0 running back and you need a somewhat of a floor, but he's nothing more than like a low running back 2 for me. He was 11 for 37 on the ground, only 2 targets, caught both of them for 22 yards, and luckily he fell in the end zone. But he played 45% of the snaps last week, and you might think, oh, Caleb Johnson, the stud rookie, was super involved. Who drafted him in my dynasty league? I wonder. No, but he wasn't involved. It was Kenneth Gainwell was the one that was kind of the number 2. He actually played a higher percentage of snaps than Jaylen Warren did. I'm not starting Kenneth Gainwell, but Gainwell was 7 for 19 on the ground, 4 targets, 3 for 4 yards through the air. Like, it's kind of just a gross backfield. So I'm not looking to start any of them, but if I had to pick one, it would be Jaylen Warren. The Seahawks backfield is also disgusting. Kenneth Walker, we kind of thought he was the lead back there, but he only saw 40% of snaps, 10 for 20 on the ground, 3 for 4 through the air on 3 targets. And Zach Charbonnet was the lead back there. Kenneth Walker is not a must bench, but I'm fine benching him if you have better options. Him versus Javonte Williams is a real conversation. I'd probably start Travion Henderson, Tony Pollard over Kenneth Walker. Like it's really gross. Charbonnet, on the other hand, I don't want to start him either, but I was just going to bring him up because he saw 58% of the snaps, 12 for 47 and a touchdown on the ground, no targets. We'll see if that sticks. If they're going to keep splitting it like that, or, that ruins both of them. And, it's a lot of wasted draft capital on Kenneth Walker, who is a good player, but, he's dealt with injuries. Maybe they're trying to preserve him. I don't know, man. It's a little disgusting. But DK Metcalf, I almost said DK Metcalf of the Seahawks because this is a revenge game for him, the former Seahawk who was traded this offseason. I really like him this week. I think I'm going to like DK Metcalf every week, no matter what. I don't know if he has the highest floor, but I like him as a wide receiver 2 this week. It's a revenge game. We'll talk about him more later, but he is the offense. He is the passing game. Calvin Austin had a nice performance for the Steelers as one of their second receivers, but Metcalf is the clear number 1 there. He's going to be targeted every week by Rodgers, and when Rodgers hyper targets you, that's usually good for fantasy. So I'm putting him out there. JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba, wide receiver for the Seahawks. You're putting him out there, man. I mean, last week, 77% of snaps, 13 targets, 9 receptions for 124 yards. His target share was pretty insane. I can't remember what it was, but he had 13 targets, and then Darnold threw the ball 23 times. What? So he had a target share. You do 13 divided by 23, right? 56.5%. Is that what that means? Am I good at math? That sounds right, right? It's more than 50%. I know that. I can do simple math like that. So you're starting him. Cooper Kupp, one of the greatest fantasy peaks of all time, but you're not starting him. I think he's washed. We'll see how he plays moving forward, but I'm not looking to start him on the road in Pittsburgh. Calvin Austin, I'm not looking to chase it, but he's always someone you could dart throw in DFS. Jonnu Smith at tight end for the Steelers. You can put him out there as a tight end 2. Arthur Smith loves this guy. Saw 6 targets in week 1, only turned into 5 for 15, but he did catch a touchdown. He was a tight end, looks like tight end 10 according to this on the week. Tight end 11, tight end 10, tight end 11. So I'm not looking to start him though, but Cleveland Browns on the road against the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore Ravens coming off that heartbreaking loss against the Bills. They're 11.5 point home favorites. Looks like 45.5 point over under. You start Lamar, you start Derrick Henry, obviously at running back. He was the running back 1 last week. Lamar was the quarterback 4, according to Fantasy Pro scoring. And you start Zay Flowers at wide receiver. He was awesome in week 1. Hopefully you had him in your lineup. He was the wide receiver 1 on the week, 24.6 points in half PPR. I think he's going to be up and down, kind of like he was last year, but he is the clear number 1 receiver there. So it's pretty much those 3, and you log out. Bateman is always a guy you could dart throw, just deep leagues, DFS. Mark Andrews is not someone that I want to play, but Isaiah Likely has been ruled out. So he's going to be the starter again. He's going to be not the starter. I think he's always the starter, I guess, but he's going to be the clear only tight end there. But I will say in a game where 81 points were scored and the Bills won 41-40, Mark Andrews, when he was again the only tight end there, no Isaiah Likely, he saw a whopping 1 target, caught that target for 5 yards. So it's a little gross. I'm looking at these Fantasy Pros rankings. He's ranked as the tight end 8 on the week. I mean, look, you could put him out there and he might catch a touchdown. That was his thing last year. It's a real decision though between the guy across the field, David Njoku on the other sideline at tight end, or even the other Browns tight end, Harold Fannin. Those are real start-sit conversations. Kyle Pitts, it's kind of gross, but you might want, I'm not saying don't start Mark Andrews. And this is the type of game where, it might be a get-right game and maybe they find him over the middle, touchdown. But it's a gross, scary situation. That's all I'm going to say. David Njoku, the tight end room for the Browns is kind of gross. I loved Njoku coming into the season. He's a great player. Saw 6 targets, only turned into 3 for 37 last week. Played 84% of the snaps, but Harold Fannin Jr., the rookie, had a great week 1. Outperformed Njoku. Saw 9 targets, turned into 7 for 63 through the air, 1 for 3 on the ground. It's kind of very similar to the Ravens where, David Njoku is the Mark Andrews. Harold Fannin is the Isaiah Likely, where, Isaiah Likely has been stuck behind Mark Andrews for a while, and he's probably better than Mark Andrews at this point. I'm not going to say Harold Fannin Jr. is already better than David Njoku. It's 1 week, and, Njoku's a great player. But, there are parallels there. So I think you can start both of those guys. If I'm starting Njoku still. I think the Browns are going to throw the ball a ton. They're going to be trailing. Joe Flacco's going to air it out. I think you can stream Joe Flacco. He actually did pretty well last week. I lost strictly because I played him over Justin Herbert. I know it sounds stupid in hindsight, but Herbert, like against the Chiefs, that's not necessarily something I wanted to play, just with how not great he was for fantasy last year. I know he ended the year hot, but I thought the team would want to run the ball more. The Chiefs have a good defense, yada, yada, yada. I played Joe Flacco, and I lost because of it. But I don't blame Joe. I blame the receivers. He was 31 of 45, 290 yards, only 1 touchdown, 2 picks. Neither of those picks were his fault, though. Literally hit the receivers in the hands. They bobbled it right into the hands of the defensive back. And those were the reason he got his 2 picks, loses 4 points there, and it ends the drive. It ends the scoring opportunities that Flacco might have had. So you don't like that. But again, not looking to start him, but you can in a 2 quarterback league or DFS, or if you're really desperate. Like I'd start Flacco over Tua, over Bryce Young, over Stafford, probably over Daniel Jones, who's playing against Denver. Yeah, maybe even over Geno Smith. Kind of like him, similar to Rodgers. So yeah, I think we covered that game, right? That's Cedric Tillman, Jerry Jeudy, receivers for the Browns. You can start them. They're going to be trailing. So Jerry Jeudy, I like him this week. As like a probably wide receiver 3. And Tillman was one of my favorite late round picks. You could get him in the last round of your draft a lot of the time. He saw 8 targets in week 1, turned into 5 for 52 and a touchdown. So you can definitely put him out there as a streaming option. And then just so you have the numbers here, Jerry Jeudy in week 1, 8 targets, 5 for 56 or 5 for 66. So it wasn't a huge performance, but you like the targets there, and I think Flacco's good enough to get him the ball. So Denver Broncos on the road against the Indianapolis Colts. What's the over under here? 43.5 points. Broncos are 2.5 point road favorites. I'm fine going back to Bo Nix after a bad week 1 for the Denver Broncos at quarterback. I'd still start him over Trevor Lawrence, Caleb Williams. It's a toss-up between him and Dak. I'd probably lean Dak there, but Bo Nix probably has more upside with his rushing ability. So that's a toss-up. And then Daniel Jones, he was amazing in week 1. Yeah, he was like the 3rd best quarterback, I think, according to Fantasy Pro scoring. I know it depends on your format, but he was like top 3, top 4. But I'm not looking to start him against the Denver Broncos. You can in like a 2 quarterback league as like maybe a low quarterback 2, but I don't expect him to repeat that performance. You're starting Jonathan Taylor for the Colts at running back, and then for the Broncos, you have Dobbins and RJ Harvey, the rookie. I think Dobbins is the play there. He's the veteran. Week 1, 16 for 63 and a touchdown on the ground, 2 for 5 through the air. He had all 3 of the team's red zone carries, played 53% of the snaps. As the season goes along, RJ Harvey is probably going to be more involved, but J.K. Dobbins is the guy right now. I like him as a low running back 2, high running back 3. RJ Harvey only played 29% of the snaps, 6 for 70 on the ground, which is great efficiency. Only 1 target, caught it for -1 yards. And Tyler Beatty had, was it 6, 7 targets? I don't expect that to stick as the season goes along, but the more he's involved, the less that leaves for Dobbins and Harvey to split. So that's really gross. Hopefully that stops being a thing. Yeah, he had 6 targets. Beatty did. Only turned into 2 for 16. So let's try to get Harvey the ball. But speaking of Harvey, I probably should have mentioned this earlier. That reminds me of Caleb Johnson, the other rookie running back for the Steelers. Don't play him yet, but do not drop him. I wouldn't drop him. We knew it was going to take time for him to get involved. I know that Caleb Johnson, what did he do? He had negative yards, right? 1 for -2, played 4% of snaps. But, he's obviously in a more dire situation than Harvey is, but that just reminded me of him. Caleb Johnson was so uninvolved, I almost forgot to even talk about him. But that's my. I drafted Caleb Johnson over RJ Harvey in the Dynasty League. That might be crazy, but I still don't hate it. But we'll see how it plays out. But Courtland Sutton, wide receiver for the Broncos. You start him, wide receiver 2. He's going to be the number 1 target there each and every week. You start him. I'm not really starting any other Broncos receivers. Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin. I don't really want to start those guys. Michael Pittman, Josh Downs at wide receiver for the Colts. Not looking to start them really. You can start Pittman, who looked good in week 1, but Broncos are a tougher matchup than the Dolphins. That's for sure. Michael Pittman was dealing with a glute injury, practiced fully on Thursday. He was 6 for 80 and a touchdown last week, so you can still start him, but nothing more than like a wide receiver 4 for me. And then Josh Downs, not looking to start him. Only 3 targets, 2 receptions last week. I'm not ready to drop him, but against the Broncos, I don't really want to put him in the lineup at this point. The number 1 target, in my opinion, in the offense, and someone who I'm excited to play, would be Tyler Warren, the rookie tight end for the Colts. First game ever, he was the tight end 3, I believe. Let me see, half PPR. Tight end 5 on the week. I don't know why these are giving me, I don't know what format this is that it's showing me, but half PPR, he was the tight end 5 on the week. Full PPR, he was a tight end 3. Got it. Okay. But Tyler Warren, the rookie, he looked great. 9 targets, turned into 7 for 76. 1 for 3. You'll love it when your tight end can be a top 5 guy without scoring a touchdown. And, we've seen a rookie tight end be good for fantasy, the last couple of years here. So, the Broncos have a good defense, but I'm still starting Tyler Warren. Maybe if you drafted like Trey McBride early and then you took a flyer on Tyler Warren late, that'd be like the only situation where I'm not starting him because, George Kittle's out. Brock Bowers is questionable right now. We'll talk about him later. He hasn't been practicing, but Warren should be in your lineup 99% of the time, unless you have like a weird situation. Evan Ingram, tight end for the Broncos. I'm not looking to start him. He had a calf injury in week 1. He's been practicing in full. Doesn't have an injury designation, but he played 34% of snaps. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's really, really bad. Wow. Did he leave the game early? I'm reading something that said he had a 34.8% route share, 13.6% target share. Maybe that'll improve later in the season. I'm not sure if this injury is playing a factor, but not playable right now. So moving on to the Panthers on the road against Arizona Cardinals. I'm not starting Bryce Young. He looked good at the end of last year, but not great in week 1. So I'm avoiding that, just monitoring how that looks. Kyler Murray's a good play. He can be a little inconsistent at times, but it's a good matchup. The Panthers' defense is terrible. James Conner, you start him. We got bailed out by a touchdown last week, but the Panthers have one of the worst run defenses in the NFL. So you start James Conner. You start every running back against the Panthers. Chuba Hubbard for the Panthers at running back. You start him. Trey Benson, the backup for the Cardinals, you can start him. He was a little bit involved. It's still James Conner's backfield as of now. But the Panthers' run defense is bad enough where if you're desperate, you can start Trey Benson. Ted McMillan, starting him. I'm starting him over Ricky Pearsall in a league, like I talked about earlier, but it is close. But Ted McMillan in his first game saw 9 targets, turned into 5 for 68. So it didn't blow your socks off, but you like the 9 targets, and I think he's going to be a good player. I think he is a good player. Then Marvin Harrison Jr., you're going to start him in week 1 against the Saints, 5 for 71 and a touchdown. You play him against the Panthers here. Jury's still out on if he's going to be the generational player that he was projected to be. But Yeah, I think that's it for receivers there. I'm not starting Leggett, Michael Wilson, Hunter Renfro. Trey McBride at tight end for the Cardinals is probably the best play at tight end on the week if Bowers doesn't play and with Kittle out. So he's an auto start. And then moving on to the Super Bowl rematch here. We got the Philadelphia Eagles traveling to play the Kansas City Chiefs. Jalen Hurts, you start him at quarterback. Patrick Mahomes at home. At Mahomes, he had a good week in week 1 against the Chargers where he finished as the quarterback 6. Threw it 39 times, but he also had 57 yards on the ground and a touchdown. I don't really expect that to be repeated. 258 and a touchdown through the air. I'm not looking to force Mahomes. Mahomes is so weird because he's one of the best players in the league, arguably the greatest player in the entire NFL. But the Eagles have a good defense. Worthy is going to miss this game. Obviously, Rashee Rice is, Worthy's doubtful, so he's going to miss. Obviously, Rashee Rice is still suspended. Jalen Royals is out. Yeah, it's going to be, It's going to be Juju. Look at their depth chart right now. It's going to be Juju Smith-Schuster, Hollywood Brown as the 1, and then Tyquan Thornton behind that. So, he's probably like what would you rank him here? I mean, it's gross. I wouldn't want to play him. I would start Drake May, Dak Prescott, Baker Mayfield, even probably Bo Nix over Mahomes. It's a bad matchup. He doesn't have his weapons. Travis Kelce wasn't really involved. So again, it's Mahomes. He could always have a big game. So bench him at your own peril, but it's been a good decision to bench him more often than not the last couple of years. Now, week 1, he looked great for fantasy. But again, a lot of that was because he got loose on the ground, which isn't the norm. And he ran in a touchdown. So we'll see. He's starting Jalen Hurts, though, at quarterback. He's a very, very good play each and every week. Saquon Barkley, running back, Eagles, start him every week. A.J. Brown, I know he only had 1 target that came in the 4th quarter last week, but you start him again. This is what the Eagles do. They get up and they don't necessarily need to throw the ball a lot. And he only had a 4.3% target share with his 1 target. And he caught it for 8 yards. I'm looking for a bounce back here. Unless he's dealing with some sort of injury that we don't know about. But the Chargers lit up this defense last week. I still think the Chiefs probably have a good defense, but I like A.J. Brown to bounce back this week. And if it's a close game, the Eagles might actually have to throw the ball a little bit. The Chiefs also shut down the Chargers run game. I don't think they're going to shut Saquon down, but it might be a thing where, maybe they throw the ball a little bit more. And I think A.J. Brown is a better player than, a 1 target type of guy. And Hurts only threw the ball 23 times last week. I know it's weird to say because even on those attempts, he only targeted A.J. Brown once, but I think he's going to bounce back. Devontae Smith you can play, but he's kind of always, not the most exciting play, but he's a wide receiver 3. And one important thing to note here is Dallas Goedert, tight end for the Eagles, is out for this game. So whenever that is the case, that usually means good things for the Eagles receivers because those targets get more consolidated where A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, there's really no one else there to throw the ball to. The number 3 is Jahan Dotson. So that kind of secures A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith a little bit more. You can start Juju if you're in like a deep league for the Chiefs. Tyquan Thornton at wide receiver. You could put him in a DFS play, but I'm not looking to start any receivers there. And then Travis Kelce, I mean, he's going to be very necessary in this game. It's pretty much just him and Hollywood Brown are the only real pass catchers in this game. I'm somewhat interested in starting. You can start Brown, you can start Kelce, just based on necessity. Like Kelsey's going to be like a low to mid tight end 1, but last week he was necessary and he only saw 4 targets, turned into 2 for 47 and a touchdown. So he got kind of lucky there. So I'm a little worried about his involvement there, but he's 35. He's 35 years old. Players don't usually play that long for a reason, Let's see. I was gonna look up. Okay. You can start Hollywood Brown. I mean, he saw 16 targets last week. That's what I was looking for. Turned in a 10 for 99. Had an ankle injury, but he's a full participant at practice, so he should be good to go. I mean, he's probably the number one pass catcher that you want there. So you can start him as a wide receiver 3. I think that's pretty much it for that game. Moving on to the night game here. Falcons on the road against my Vikings. JJ McCarthy looked really not great through a few quarters there, but then had a great fourth quarter. You know, scored 3 touchdowns. He just had a kid. So he was only threw the ball 20 times last week. So he was 13 of 20, 143 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had a pick 6. Justin Jefferson said it was his own fault. So I don't know. I don't know if he's just being a good teammate but he basically said he kind of ran the route a way that he wasn't supposed to, and McCarthy thought he was going to run it a different way. But McCarthy, I think with KOC as the coach, I mean, I think he's going to succeed. And he's playing the Falcons, who don't really scare me defensively. Baker Mayfield didn't have the most efficient game yardage wise last week, but he had a few touchdowns. So I think you can start McCarthy. He also had 2 for 25 on the ground. But yeah, McCarthy's honestly, he's like a mid quarterback 2 to high quarterback 2. It's a real decision between him and Trevor Lawrence. I'd start McCarthy over Caleb Williams, over Jared Goff, over Penix in the same game, over Stroud, over Geno, over Danny Dimes. Penix, you can start. If the Falcons are going to move the ball, it's probably going to be through the air. But not really looking to start Michael Penix unless you're in like a 2-quarterback league. Bijan Robinson is an auto start. Not super efficient on the ground last week, and Tyler Algier was very involved. But yeah, he's only 12 for 24 on the ground. But he had 7 targets, turned into 6 for 100 yards and a touchdown. He had that really long touchdown reception. So Bijan is obviously an auto start. And then Tyler Algier, not looking to start him, but he himself saw 10 carries on the ground. So that's a little annoying that he had the same amount of carries, or only 2 less than Bijan Robinson, but we'll see how that kind of evolves. And then the running backs for the Vikings, you got Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason. Jordan Mason looked really good on the ground. Aaron Jones looked really good through the air. They're close for me. Aaron Jones was 8 for 23 on the ground, but added 3 for 44 and a touchdown on 3 targets against the Bears last week. I'd probably still start him over Mason, but it's really close. Like, Mason had 15 for 68 on the ground, caught his 1 target for 7 yards. It's that passing game involvement is so important. In my honest opinion, if Jordan Mason scores a touchdown, he's the better play. If he doesn't, Aaron Jones is the better play. That might be kind of silly, but Jordan Mason, just because of that passing game involvement, like Mason can, he had 15 for 68 on the ground, and he even caught a pass for 7 yards, but it only turned to 8.5 points. Is that PPR? What was Mason at for half PPR here? I could probably just do simple math, but I'm too lazy. 8 points. So, kind of need the touchdown there, but he might get it. You're starting Justin Jefferson. Drake London was dealing with a shoulder injury for the Falcons, so he's playing though. So you start him. And I don't know what his has he been practicing, or is he just kind of raw dogging it? He's not on this injury report. Okay, well that's a good thing, right? So he's fine. So yeah, Jefferson for the Vikings, he must start. Drake London must start. Darnell Mooney's making his debut for the Falcons at receiver. I'm not starting him, but as the season goes along, he's going to be involved. He was pretty decent last year as the wide receiver 2, but he's missed like all training camp. Got hurt at the very beginning. Missed the preseason. This is his first game, so he might be limited. Adam Thielen at wide receiver. Not looking to start him. He didn't have a catch last week. He did have a 2-point conversion. I was up by like 4-point-something points against him, and I ended up winning. So that was crazy. I was clearly going to win, and then I went against Josh Allen, and then I still won because Adam Thielen did nothing. So I'm not looking to start Thielen. So it's sad, but he's also 35, just like Travis Kelce. TJ Hawkinson at tight end, you can start. Last week wasn't great. I think you still start him this week, unless you have like Tyler Warren. I would start him over him, but yeah, caught 3 of 4 targets, 15 yards last week. But the whole passing game was kind of, you hope that takes a step forward in general. And then Kyle Pitts, you can start him this week. He had 8 targets, caught 7 for 59. And you know, with Mooney just coming back, you know, he might be pretty necessary here. If you're going to beat the Vikings, you probably got to throw it because run D is pretty good. Now they're going to shut down Bijan, but you know, they might even just resort to throwing it to Bijan more than, you know, if they could run on the Vikings. We got 2 more games left here. The Monday night games, doubleheader. Let's fly through these. We got the Tampa Bay Bucks on the road against the Houston Texans. You start Baker Mayfield. I like him as a low quarterback 1, I would say. I'm not really looking to start CJ Stroud. That offense looked really bad last week, and he hasn't really been good for fantasy in a while. Bucky Irving, he started running back for the Bucks. I don't want to start Nick Chubb, but if you had to start a running back for the Texans, that's who I would start. I made the decision in one of my leagues to keep him. I had Keenan Allen. I dropped Keenan Allen for Nick Chubb because I needed a running back, and Keenan Allen, of course, had a great week 1, but Nick Chubb had 13 for 60 on the ground. He had 1 target. But again, if you don't have that passing game involvement, unless you're like Derrick Henry, it's really hard to be great for fantasy. You know, if you went 0 RB, maybe you could put him out there, but I'm not really wanting to. You know, and yeah, if he gets a touchdown, you're probably going to be happy. And the Bucks had a good run defense last year, and you know, they kind of shut down Bijan Robinson on the ground. I know he was great for fantasy last week, but that was all because of the passing game involvement, and that's not something Nick Chubb is going to do. So Nico Collins at receiver for the Texans had a disappointing week 1. The whole offense was disappointing, only 3 for 25 on 5 targets, but obviously, you know, you put him out there. The offense might struggle this year, but unless things get really bad, you know, you're going to be starting Nico Collins each and every week. Mike Evans, you start him as a wide receiver 2. He missed practice on Friday for rest, but he's good to go. 5 for 51 in week 1 on 8 targets. You know, Mike Evans isn't a type of guy that's going to go out each and every week and be consistent. But you put him in your lineup all the time because when that touchdown or multi-touchdown game comes, you want it in your lineup. And then Emeka Egbuka, the rookie, he had a couple touchdowns in his debut last week. I love him as a wide receiver 2. He had only 4 receptions on 6 targets, but it turned into 67 yards and 2 touchdowns. You would like to see him be more involved, like, you know, target-wise, not just rely on getting 2 touchdowns. But I think he was drafted to be a good player. He made big plays, and I think as the season goes along, he's going to be more and more involved. And Chris Godwin is still going to be out for this game. He's doubtful. So Tristan Wirfs, tackle, is also doubtful for the Bucks, but hopefully he comes back soon. And then I'm not starting Cade Otton or Dalton Schultz at tight end. And then for the Chargers and the Raiders, the last game of the week, I believe it's a 10 p.m. Eastern time start. So that's a late one, but Justin Herbert is a great start this week. Threw the ball more than expected, ran the ball more than expected last week in a tough matchup against the Chiefs. So now that he's taking on the Raiders, he's going to fall flat on his face, right? Well, hopefully not, because I'm going to talk about him in just a second even more. But I love Justin Herbert. Not looking to start Geno. Oh, I forgot to say. Did I say the lines for these games? For these last few games? I don't think I did. Let's see. Vikings, 44.5 point over, 3.5 point favorites at home. When did I stop saying? Did I say like? When did I stop saying them? Did I say the Chiefs and Eagles? That's a 46.5 point over. Eagles are 1.5 point road favorites. I don't know the last time the Chiefs have been home underdogs. That's crazy. I said the Vikings and the Falcons won. And then, yeah, Texans, Bucks, got a 42.5 point over under. Texans are 2.5 point favorites. I'd probably pick the Bucks there, honestly, to win and to cover. And then 46.5 point over under for the Chargers and the Raiders. The Chargers are 3 point road favorites. Like I said, you start Herbert. I would go right back to Amari and Hampton. Wasn't super involved in week 1, but maybe they're gonna throw the ball more than we expected. But he still saw 15 carries. It's a tough matchup against the Chiefs. Only turned into 48 yards. Saw 2 targets for 2 catches and 13 yards. But I'm starting him. Najee Harris only played 12 snaps. But he's been dealing with that eye injury, and it might become more of a split as he gets more acclimated. But I'm still starting Hampton. Ashton Genty. I'm starting Hampton as a wide receiver 2. Genty, I'm starting as a low. Did I say wide receiver? I've been talking for an hour and a half. I'm sorry. I'm starting Hampton as a mid running back 2. Genty as like a low running back 1, high running back 2. Wasn't as much as we were hoping for in week 1, but you still start them, obviously. Receivers for the Chargers, I think you can start all these guys. Ladd McConkey is an auto start, wide receiver 1, high wide receiver 2. Keenan Allen, you can start. He came back off, took a year off in Chicago, came back, saw 10 targets, 7 for 68 and a touchdown. And he looked good, So, and then Quentin Johnston, he had a big game in week 1. I'm not forcing him in the lineup, but if they're gonna throw the ball, like he's a big play guy when he catches it. He was 5 for 79 and 2 touchdowns last week. On 7 targets. He was the wide receiver 2 on the week. He was number 1 up until Zay Flowers on the night game. So you can start all those guys. In order for me, it would go McConkey, Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnston. If you're like a big underdog, or if you're losing by a lot come Monday night, you could put Quentin Johnston in the lineup there. And then Trey Tucker and Deontay Thornton, not starting them outside of the deepest leagues or DFS, but people to monitor. Brock Bowers at tight end. He's been dealing with an injury. So he's questionable. I don't think he practiced on Friday. Let me pull up this report here. He's questionable. Yeah, he didn't practice Friday. He hasn't been practicing. He's got a knee injury. So make sure you have another tight end option. If we get closer to that game, you can make a call on just starting someone on Sunday, so you don't have to wait for that Monday night decision and have no one to play. I would be cool rostering Michael Mayer and just starting him if Brock Bowers is out, because Mayer's a good player. That rhymed, didn't mean to do that. And if he is the starter, I'm cool putting him in and just putting Brock Bowers on IR. So if you are going to do that plan, make sure you either have Mayer on your roster heading into the game, or make sure that you can put an out player in your IR spot so you can make room to add Mayer. Because if you have to actually be on IR to be put on the IR spot and all your other players are locked, you're not going to be able to play anyone, because obviously you're not going to drop Brock Bowers to play Mayer for 1 week. Or honestly, just maybe pick him up early before Sunday, because if your opponent sees that, they might scoop up Mayer before you even have a chance. So, yeah, I think that covers all the games. We're going to do my starts of the week quick here. Before we do that, make sure, my jaw. Maybe some jaw stretches here. I'm talking so much, and my jaw always hurts, dude. Anyways, before we get into the starts of the week, please make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel wherever you are enjoying the pod, so you can become a fantasy football prodigy. All right, we're going to get into my starts of the week, position by position. Let's get it. So, my week 1 quarterback start of week 1. Yeah, guys, we're week 1. What am I? What is this, preseason? I got to get locked in here. Okay, ready? My week 2 quarterback start of the week, Justin Herbert, quarterback of the LA Chargers, on the road against the Las Vegas Raiders. Justin Herbert and the Chargers surprised a lot of people in week 1 by being more pass heavy than expected. Against a tough Chiefs defense, Herbert was the quarterback 5 on the week, going 25 for 34, 318 yards, and 3 touchdowns through the air. He also added 7 carries for 32 yards on the ground, and it appeared like he was actually looking to run the ball and had some designed running plays, which is great for fantasy. There's no question that Justin Herbert is one of the most talented quarterbacks in the league, but there were worries heading into the season about how run heavy the Chargers might want to be with Harbaugh as coach, and how little Justin Herbert might run the ball himself. The Chargers went more pass heavy to end the 2024 season, but we honestly weren't sure if that was by design and desire, or if that was due to them not being able to effectively run the ball with J.K. Dobbins and company. Remember Gus Edwards? Yeah, he's not in the league anymore. Now, we're only 1 week into the 2025 season, but if the Chargers are more willing to let Herbert throw the ball and have him run the ball himself, he has the talent and the weapons around him to be a league-winning type of quarterback for how late he was going in drafts. Herbert takes on the Las Vegas Raiders on Monday Night Football. We last saw him travel to Las Vegas in Week 18 last season, in the middle of that stretch where he was actually being allowed to throw the ball more, and he finished as the quarterback 3 that week. I like Justin Herbert as a mid quarterback 1 in Week 2. All right, I need some water here. Been talking for an hour and a half straight. I do it for the love of the game, baby. Come on. I got that JJ McCarthy dog in me, all right? All right, moving on. Make sure the hair looks good. All right. These are going on TikTok. If it seems a little more, scripted, it's because I actually have better notes for this. You know what I'm saying? All right, moving on. I should set myself too. All right. Ready? My Week 2 running back start of the week, James Conner of the Arizona Cardinals at home against the Carolina Panthers. Did I say Carolina No, I said Arizona Cardinals, right? James Conner of the Arizona Cardinals at home versus the Carolina Panthers. Just in case I said Carolina Cardinals. I don't think I did. But last week, during this time, this is about the mark where I started losing my mind. So it's happening again. But anyways, moving on. I made him a start of the week last week against the Saints, and we kind of got bailed out with a receiving touchdown in what was an otherwise disappointing performance. We saw Trey Benson get some work behind James Conner, but Conner was the lead back, and I'm putting him right back in the lineup with enthusiasm this week against the Carolina Panthers. Going back to the 2024 season, the Panthers have one of the worst run defenses in the history of the NFL. That defense literally gave up the most points in a season in NFL history last year, and their run defense was constantly gashed and gave up the most fantasy points to running backs in the league. Defenses obviously change from year to year, but in the first week of the 2025 season, the Panthers' run D once again looked just putrid. The Jacksonville Jags ran all over them, with Travis Etienne rushing for 143 yards on 16 attempts. Etienne was arguably the biggest bust in all of fantasy football last season. He never finished better than the running back 20 a single time all of last season, yet in one game played this season, the Panthers allowed him to be the running back 6 on the week. The Panthers' offense also looked like it might have taken a step back after showing signs of life at the end of last season. The Cardinals are 6.5-point favorites at home, meaning there's a chance we get a good game script for James Conner and the Cardinals' running game if they are leading and able to run out the clock in the fourth quarter. I like James Conner as a low running back 1 in Week 2. Let me verify that ETN stat here. That's what I wrote down. Let me see here. So fantasy football finishes Week 1, running back, half PPR. ETN was the running back 6. And he was 16 for 143. Yeah, and then last year, let me see. So these were his finishes in half PPR last year. 28, 20, 21, 39, 29, 88, hurt, 46, 40, 35, bye, 36, 28, 22, 46, 27, 35. So yeah, never better than the running back 20. That's actually an insane stat. Wow. Anyways, moving on. I have a bonus running back start of the week. And you know what's funny? It's the guy we just talked about. My Week 2 running back start of the week, Travis Etienne of the Jacksonville Jags on the road against the Cincinnati Bengals. I just mentioned it when I was talking about James Conner, but I also love Travis Etienne this week, even though he was really bad last year. Travis Etienne was arguably the biggest bust in fantasy football in 2024, and he fell way down in drafts in 2025. Well, Week 1 is now in the books, and I don't know how much of it was him bouncing back as a player versus just a case of him playing the Carolina Panthers' historically bad run defense. But Travis Etienne looked awesome in the Jags opening game. Not that he was super involved in week 1, but since that game, the team has traded away fellow running back Tank Bigsby, which leaves just Bashaw Tutin and LaQuint Allen as the only running backs of note behind Etienne. Tutin might get more involved as the season goes along, but in week 2, I expect Travis Etienne to be the clear lead back against a bad Bengals defense. The Bengals in the Joe Burrow era have a tendency to start the season slow, and in week 1, they barely squeaked out a win over the Browns, who honestly, it seemed like they were trying to lose the game, and they, the Bengals barely won. Factoring in that historical tendency, along with the fact that the Bengals are only 3.5-point favorites, this game could be closer than expected, which would allow Jacksonville to hand the ball off in the running game. Even if the Jags do end up trailing and they're trying to play catch up, Etienne is a good pass-catching running back and could still find fantasy value through the air. I like Travis Etienne as a mid to high running back 2 in week 2. Moving on to the wide receiver position. So, we're going to talk about revenge. My wide receiver start of the week, DK Metcalf of the Pittsburgh Steelers at home versus the Seattle Seahawks. We got a revenge game on our hands, ladies and gentlemen. This offseason, the Seattle Seahawks traded Metcalf to the Pittsburgh Steelers in week 1 in a tough matchup against Sauce Gardner and the Jets with Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback. Metcalf had a 26% target rate on his routes, which resulted in a 7-target, 4-reception, and 83-yard performance. Nothing world-beating, but you like the usage there. Solid performance with 83 yards. It might be a tough matchup, but Metcalf is the clear number 1 for Rodgers, and I think they're going to feed him and try to get him a touchdown against his former team. DK Metcalf is also just a beast. I think he's a little bit underrated at this point, but he's going to be hyper-targeted in this offense, and I like DK Metcalf as a mid wide receiver 2 in week 2. I also like JSN on the other side of the ball because he similarly is kind of the only receiver on his team, but you're probably starting him anyways. My final start of the week, my tight end start of the week, Kyle Pitts of the Atlanta Falcons on the road against the Minnesota Vikings. We've been waiting for the Kyle Pitts breakout now for years. And while I am not foolish enough to guarantee that that has actually arrived, I was very encouraged by his week 1 usage. In week 1 against the Bucs, Pitts saw 8 targets and had 7 catches for 59 yards, finishing as the tight end 12 on the week. It was not a monster performance by any means, but I love the 8 targets, and I love that 49% of his snaps came from the slot. If the Falcons are going to move the ball on my Vikings on Sunday Night Football, they're likely going to have to do it through the air. It doesn't hurt Pitts' case for getting targets that number 1 wide receiver Drake London will be playing through a shoulder injury that he suffered last week. He's been practicing and he should be fine, but he did, get a little banged up last week. And also, that number 2 wide receiver Darnell Mooney will be making his season debut after suffering his own shoulder injury all the way back at the very beginning of training camp. Very possible that we see Mooney be at least somewhat limited in his first game back. It's always nerve-wracking putting Kyle Pitts in the starting lineup, and he is not a must-start. But if you don't have a locked-in option at the position, I like Kyle Pitts as a low tight end 1 in week 2. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's going to do it for this episode of the podcast. I wanted it to be faster than last week. So last week's was, let me see, an hour and 29 minutes. We're sitting at about an hour and 34 minutes. So I'm going to try to, moving forward, not yap so much during the breakdown of the week ahead. But, a lot of podcasts, they'll like break up the games from one podcast to the other. I just do it all in one because I'm built different. But thank you for watching or listening. I really do appreciate it. Good luck to everyone in week 2, except my and your opponents. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, Fantasy Football Prodigy. And make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you are enjoying the pod. If you can leave a like or a comment wherever you are listening, it would be greatly appreciated if you did that. And thank you for listening. Hopefully I helped you become a fantasy football prodigy. I will see you all in the next one. Peace.